Oh, hello darlings, and welcome back to my channel.
Oh my shit.
If you'd like to know how to make these horns, then please do click the link down below because I have a separate video for this.
Why did I do this?
Alright, let's begin. So before even starting the look, obviously like I said, you want to make your horns. This is on a headband, and then you also want to make the bald cap as well. I made mine on the 𝗠𝗘𝗏𝗏 Red Head, or you can just go ahead and buy one, but the only reason why I made mine is to save some dollar. And I'm from the UK, and we don't have dollars. Okay, so now that we have the horns and the bald cap, what we need to do is put the headband under the bald cap and the horns to be sticking through the bald cap. So what you want to do is put that on your head, draw around the horns, and then poke holes in the center of the circles that you drew. So now what we're going to do is stretch this hole onto the horns, and as you're pushing the bald cap onto the horns, it should tear as you're going along. You want to obviously do this to both sides, and just keep in mind that when making the bald cap, you might want to make it quite thick and strong, just because otherwise it's not going to handle all this pulling and tearing. Now, give it a try. I gotta say, I didn't even know if this plan was gonna work or not because I'd never even seen it done this way before, and this was the light bulb moment when I realised, holy shit, this shit works! Yes, I did it! Do yourself a favour and paint the horns before putting the bald cap on. Alright, let's actually get into the makeup. So we're going to start off with the teeth. Now with the top row I actually had this prepped already, but for the bottom row I'm going to show you how I did that. So basically I dipped cotton into liquid latex, then I made like a bed where the teeth are going to sit, and then you want to stick the teeth on. Now you may want to hold the teeth on for a few seconds while it kind of dries, so then you can let go, and you basically just want to keep building up the layers until it's nice and secure and you've built yourself some gums. Moving on to the next step, you want to grab some Synwax and you want to knead this in between your fingers and warm up the product. But don't warm it up too much because then it'll get too sticky. You've got to get that nice in between. You then want to create these triangular shapes, and these are going to be the points of the stars. To stick the Synwax on my face, I used good old Pros-Aide. So if you don't know what Pros-Aide is, it acts like a contact adhesive. You need to apply the Pros-Aide onto both the prosthetic and your face, wait for the glue to dry, and then stick it on. Here's just me showing my asshole of a face cast to the Instagram live. Okay, anyway, so as you can see, I've already painted the insides of the star red. For that, I used the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Bruise Wheel. And then you want to grab something quite straight. Just be careful if you're stupid like me and you're using scissors near your face. And you want to start to straighten out and kind of sculpt the edges of the star. And at this point, we're just working the Synwax and getting it into shape. Feel free to add little bits of Synwax here and there if there's not enough. Once I was happy with the amount of Synwax that I have, I'm then grabbing some Vaseline, and this is what's going to seal the deal, because you want to blend this out into your skin as seamless as possible, and this is what's going to give it the realistic look. Sculpting tools is very ideal for this, but if you don't have any, don't worry, you can use the end of a paintbrush or something like that. And just sculpt away. Make the star, you're a freaking sculptor now. As I'm working along, I'm going in with the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Bruise Wheel, and I'm just taking some darker colours like the purple and the brown, and I'm just going to apply this to the edges of the star as well. And this is what's going to create depth, because you want the darker colours to be more on the edges of the star and the more brighter red on the inside of the star. Taking some IPA and a sponge, you want to dab this on top of the Vaseline. Now just be really careful, try not to breathe it in or get it even near your eyes because that shit is strong. What this is going to do is get rid of the Vaseline because you don't want shiny skin. Moving on, so we're going to create the circle around the pentagram. So you want to grab the Synwax again, warm it up in between your fingers, and this time we're going to create worm shapes. Just keep in mind that when you apply the Pros-Aide onto the Synwax, it takes so much longer to dry than when you apply it onto your face. So you might want to grab a handy hairdryer. Also keep in mind that don't put the settings too high on the heat because you will make the Synwax too sticky. Apply that Pros-Aide to your face, let it dry, and stick it on. So now we're just basically repeating the same process. So you want to grab your sculpting tools and your Vaseline and smooth it out. As you can see here, I'm now using my tool and creating a carve in the circle. This whole process of the pentagram face in particular is very time consuming and fiddly, so just be patient and trust the process. Once again, just grab some IPA, dab it on, and then you want to grab a wire sponge and also dab this, because what this is going to do is create texture and pores in the skin whilst also evening out the Synwax. At this point, I'm just doing some final finishing touches, really defining the edges of the star, straightening the edges, and adding colour here and there. So at this point would be the time to colour the Synwax so it matches your face, but funnily enough it already matches my face exactly, but on the very high chance that it doesn't, you want to grab some foundation and then just basically make it match. Okay, we're moving on to the next step. So we're going to say bye-bye to our brows by using a glue stick, and you want to do about 2 to 3 layers and powder in between. Brush off the excess, grab some concealer and hide those brows. You want to do a good few layers of concealer to get rid of them. Alright, it's time to make ourselves bold. So you want to grab some hair gel, preferably some strong stuff, and you want to flatten your hair as much as you can. It's ideal to grab a comb and just really get that flat. I'm also using some hairspray as well for some extra security. You also want to tie your hair in a low ponytail as well, and it would be ideal to braid it, but not necessary. I couldn't do it, but it's just better, so there's not little bits sticking out. Now it's time to put that crown on.
Is it okay?
So now you want to flip the edges back so you can apply the Pros-Aide onto both the bowl cap and your head. Use a hairdryer to speed up the process, and just please do not get that shit in your hair. Thank you very much. Now, at this point I was extremely nervous because, not gonna lie, I did make the bowl cap too small, so I had to stretch it around my head like an anus. Wait, what? The edges were definitely not as flat as I'd like them to be, just because the edges of the bowl cap kept on folding onto itself and sticking to itself, and it was a bit of a nightmare. And boy was this bowl cap tight. It literally gave me a fucking facelift. So normally, if you were to buy a decent bowl cap, you can then smooth out the edges by using some acetone, but because this was made out of latex, you couldn't do that. So I had to improvise and somehow smooth out the edges. So what I did was grab some tissue, some latex and a sponge, and just basically put a few layers on to try and blend it out as much as I could. It wasn't as smooth as I'd like it to be, but I was pretty impressed considering I'd never made a bowl cap before, and that also making your own saves the $, so what's it gonna be? So while the bowl cap was drying, I then moved on to the horns. So I grabbed some cotton and liquid latex once again, and then you want to wrap this around the edges, and this is going to create the illusion that like the horns have emerged from your skin rather than just kind of like floating on your head, and it just gives it much more of a realistic look. Use a sponge, cotton buds, your fingers, whatever, and just blend it into your head as much as you can. And while waiting for that to dry, I then bounced back onto the bowl cap, grabbed some setting powder and just pushed the powder onto the shiny areas where the latex is. This is obviously going to set it and get rid of the shine. Paint that pentagram in, and then grab some concealer or some foundation or whatever, and then we're going to paint this onto the rest of the everything. But I kind of avoided the horns because they were still drying, but eventually we will cover that as well. Obviously this is going to pull everything together and all the skin is going to match. And as you can see, I decided to go for something a little bit more pale. It's probably a good idea you put in the contacts now before doing any more work near the eyes. These lenses are by Mesmerize. So moving on, this is a really important step, but you want to create texture and kind of like colours in the skin. So what I did was grab some IPA and a bit of Meron Bruise Wheel, mixed it together so you're basically diluting the pigment, and you want to splat this all over your face very gently. I'm using a really big brush for this, like a really bristly one. Be so gentle when doing this, because if you put too much on then it's very difficult to get off. And then I'm also using the same colours, which is the reds and the purple, and I'm just making some veins. Alright, I'm finally setting the horns now, and for some reason I didn't put the pigment on top, but I will eventually. Anyway, moving on to the eyes, we're going to grab some eyeshadow and some eyeshadow brushes, and we're going to create some depth. So you want to take some browns, dark browns, light browns, some nudes. I wouldn't say black because I think that's just too heavy, and yeah, just create some depth. Get that fluffy brush going in a circular motion and just keep blending. Feel free to drag the product down onto your nose as well. Now for the final finishing and best part of the look, the blood. So you want to grab some, well, all types of bloods actually, coagulated, squirt, stage, and just go crazy. I decided to put them coming out of the horns, so like I said before, it looks like it's like emerged from your head, and let that just drip all over your face. Oh yeah. And then do the same for the pentagram. Now that I'm sat here watching the footage, I do think it would have looked even better if I put more blood on. I was a little bit shy this time for some reason, but anyway, that is it. Feel free to add your accessories. As you can see, I got this lovely harness. And then go answer the door to the postman, or stand by your window and scare your neighbours. Thank you so much for watching my video. I really hope you enjoyed this and you found it helpful. If you liked this, then please let me know by giving me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and feel free to support me on the rest of my social media at 𝗠𝗘𝗏𝗏. Oh, that was a very hard one, I gotta say. Bye guys.
Oh my god, that's waxing off my hair. Oh my fucking god. Oh my fucking god. Oh my shit. I can literally hear the hairs coming out. Oh my fucking. Oh god. Jesus fucking Christ.